Hello, first graders. It's Miss Van Wert. Today we are going to read the story, The Aztec, the Floating Gardens of Xochimilco. Our learning objectives are to describe the plot of a legend, explain the importance of farming to the Aztec, demonstrate an understanding of the word stationary, practice identifying and using object pronouns, explain the importance of farming to the Aztec, and write a summary statement about Aztec farming. Our key vocabulary are abundance, dredged, float, and stationary. Abundance is a noun, and abundance means a great amount, more than enough. There is an abundance of different kinds of trees and animals in the rainforest. Dredged. Dredged is a verb, and it means gathered. At the beach, the children dredged up sand from below the water and searched for shells. Float. Float is a verb, and to float means to rest at the top of a liquid, such as water. The ice cubes float in my lemonade. Stationary. Stationary is an adjective, and it means still, set in one place. The statue is a stationary object in the park. If you look in this picture, those bell peppers are stationary. They're not moving, okay? All right, the Aztecs. What do we know? Oh, also, let's start with the Maya. Where did the Maya live? On the Yucatan Peninsula, right here, okay? And what about the Aztecs? They were in central Mexico, more specifically, Lake Texcoco, okay? What did we learn about the legend last time? We learned that they're polytheistic, right? They had traveled a long time because they were waiting for a sign from the gods. And they finally got that sign from the gods, and now they are settled on Lake Texcoco. Okay? Remember, our key vocabulary are abundance, dredged, float, and stationary. So I want you to say the word Chinampas. Chinampas. Okay? Chinampas are man-made islands appearing to float on the surface of water, referred to as floating gardens. You're going to hear about two new places, okay? You're going to learn about Tenochtitlan or Tenochtitlan. It's pronounced two different ways. And it is the capital city of the Aztec civilization, which is in present-day Mexico City. And it means place of the cactus, okay? And then we're also going to learn about Xochimilco, which was an Aztec village named for the many flowers and other crops that were grown there on the Chinampas. There is also a lake by the same name, which means flower field. Okay. So if we go back, this right here says Mexico City. This is where Tenochtitlan was. Okay. All right. I want you to listen carefully to find out how, sorry, I'm waiting for this bar to go away, how the Aztecs farmed long ago. Paddling his canoe across the lake, the overpowering smell of blossoming flowers reached Torn Wing before he could even see them. The young man's name is Torn Wing. The Aztec, like the Maya, named themselves for plants, animals, or types of weather that had special meaning to them. Torn Wing was named for the wing of a bird. As he came closer, countless small islands, or Chinampas, came into view. He could see why people referred to these islands as floating gardens. The Aztecs made these islands that appeared to float or rest on the top of water on the surface of the water. But Chinampas could not actually float away. Each island was firmly attached by roots that grew down into the bottom of the lake. As Tornwing maneuvered his narrow, flat-bottomed canoe among the canals or waterways separating them, he recalled his uncle's story about how the Chinampas were formed. The Aztec had dug ditches out of the swampy land for water to flow through, then covered rafts made of reeds and branches with mud dredged up or scooped up from the bottom of the lake. So, do you see the raft? So, this is the raft that was made out of the reeds and the branches, okay? And then they cover them with mud that is brought up from the bottom of the lake, okay? Over the years, layers upon layers of mud were added until finally, with the help of the roots from the willow trees, the islands became stationary. That means the islands no longer moved around because the roots from the tree on the raft anchored the rafts to the bottom of the lake. Hundreds of narrow rectangular islands separated by a network of water ditches called canals covered the swamplands. For the people who had long sought a way to grow plants even in the times when there was no rainfall, these island gardens provided a wonderful solution. The surrounding water kept the earth moist all year long, irrigating and fertilizing the fields. Maize, beans, squash, tomatoes, and chili peppers grew in abundance. Remember, abundance means in great supply. So that means that there was a lot of maize, which is corn, beans, squash, tomatoes, and chili peppers that were growing on the Chinampas, supplying the large city of Tenochtitlan and beyond. The gardens of Xochimilco were truly an agricultural wonderland. Torn Wing's uncle, Wing Feather, had described Xochimilco to Torn Wing after the young man's father, who was Wing Feather's brother, had died. His uncle had said, "My brother was a good man and a good farmer. Did he teach you everything that he knew?" "Yes, uncle," Tornwing had answered. "I worked at his side in the fields. We always had the best crop of any near our village." "Good," his uncle said. "I want you to know that even though your parents are gone now, you are not alone. Your aunt and I want you to come and live with us as our son. I can use your help in my business, and since we have no son of our own, when I grow too old to work, it will become yours. But nephew, I do not want to make you leave your familiar home. If you prefer to stay in your own village, I will help you by giving you cacao beans." Cacao beans were very valuable. The Aztecs used the cacao beans as a kind of money. "But if you choose to live with us, you should know that the city of Tenochtitlan and its nearby floating gardens are a wonderful place to be." Tornwing answered, "Then I will come, uncle." So guys, Tornwing's dad, who was named Wing Feather, had died. So Tornwing went to go see his uncle, which is the man that's talking to him now, and his uncle is saying, "You can live with me, but I also don't want to take you away from the home that you know. But if you choose to leave the home that you know to live with me, it would make him happy." Okay? Tornwing had easily followed his uncle's directions to Lake Xochimilco, but now that he was at last among the watery roads of the place, he had forgotten his uncle's warning. There are so many sights to see that it is easy to become overwhelmed and lose your way. Sure enough, Tornwing was lost. He decided to retrace his route to the edge of the floating gardens and start again. Just then, however, he heard an old woman's voice asking, "Are you lost? Perhaps I can help." Turning, he saw a short, gray-haired woman smiling warmly up at him. She was sitting in a boat tied by a rope to the nearest Chinampa. "If you are lost," she said energetically, "you are not the first. When I was a girl and came here for the first time, it took weeks before I learned my way around." Torn Wing smiled back and said, "You are very kind. As a matter of fact, I am lost. I was trying to find my uncle. His name is Wing Feather." Her smile grew even wilder. "I know him. He and my sons are friends. They can take you to him." She squinted closely at the young man. "So you are Wing Feather's nephew. He told us you were coming. My name is Moonwish." She turned and called over her shoulder, "Star Webb, Loudsong, come here." From around the far side of a high, thick cluster of plants came two of the biggest men Torn Wing had ever seen. He thought to himself, "These two certainly do not look anything like their tiny mother." The two young brothers grinned. "It is so good to meet you," the first one said. "I am Starweb. I am the tall brother," he joked. "This is my little brother, Loudsong." Actually, Loudsong was even bigger than Starweb, but he didn't seem to mind this introduction. He laughed and gave his older brother a friendly pat. Then Starweb added, "Loudsong is especially glad to become friends of Wingfeather's relatives." So, who would you be talking about if you were talking about your relatives? Your family members, right? Then the younger brother, Loudsong, said, "I will lead you to your uncle." Sliding into a canoe so smoothly that it hardly rocked beneath him, he said, "Follow me," and started off. Tornwing had just enough time to say goodbye to Moonwish and Starweb, paddling off quickly in order to keep his guide in sight. "What a wonderful place," he thought. "This is my new home." All the tiredness of his journey was forgotten in his excitement as he rode further into the heart of the floating gardens of Xochimilco. All right, that is the end of our story. We are going to do some comprehension questions and word work, but if you need a quick wiggle break, go ahead and do that first. Here we go. How did the Aztec make their chinampas? They dug canals out of the swampy land and then used the mud dredged up from the bottom of the lake to cover rafts that were made out of reeds and branches. Over the years, layers upon layers of mud were added until finally, with the help of the roots from the willow trees, the islands became stationary. How did the Aztecs use the chinampas? What were they used for? They used them to grow food and other crops, right? Why was farming important to the Aztec? Because it gave them food, and you need food to live, don't you? And how do you know this based on the read aloud? Well, they created a unique way of farming in an area that wouldn't normally be suited to it, right? They needed to farm, and so they made what they had work. All right, time for our word work. In the read aloud you heard, over the years, layers upon layers of mud were added to the Chinampas until finally, with the help of the roots from the willow trees, the islands became stationary. I want you to say the word stationary. Stationary. Now I want you to say it in a whisper voice. Now I want you to say it like a robot. Stationary. Okay. When something is stationary, that means that it is not moving and it is fixed in a certain place. When the bus is not moving, it is stationary. Tell me about something that is stationary. Try to use the word stationary when you talk about it. What's the word we've been talking about? Stationary. I'm going to read a few phrases. If what I say describes something that is stationary, you're going to say that is stationary. If what I say is describing something that is not stationary, you're going to say that is not stationary. A leopard running. That is not stationary. A cat sleeping. That is stationary, right? Your cat doesn't move around when they're sleeping. A person sitting still. That is stationary. A ball rolling down the street. That is not stationary. A picture hanging on a wall. That is stationary. A person dancing. That's not stationary. All right. Where would we put this card? Would we put it in leaders, city, religion, writing, or farming? Farming, right? We learned about the Chinampas, and the Chinampas are for food and for crops. All right, let's see which learning objectives we have done. We described the plot of a legend. We explained the importance of farming to the Aztec. We demonstrated an understanding of the word stationary. We are going to practice identifying and using object pronouns in the next little video. We are going to explain the importance of farming to the Aztec. We already did that. And then you are going to write a summary statement about Aztec farming. Okay? Awesome, awesome job. See you next time.